Welcome, welcome everyone. Now it's time to have some fun. First we sit and say hello, then we play let's go, go, go. Welcome, welcome
Welcome back to Dig Deep into this aspect linked to learner-centered education. So first and foremost, we are going to start with learner-centered education and conventional teaching, which is considered as teacher-centered education. How it now linked to learner-centered education. Okay, learner-centered education and conventional teaching, and then when you're talking about conventional teaching, so this is a traditional method of instructions where the teacher is what is the central figure in the classroom, delivering knowledge through direct instruction. So this is a traditional method of instruction uh, where the teacher is the central figure. The teacher here is the central figure in the classroom, delivering what? Knowledge through direct instruction. Okay, let's have a look again. So the teacher-centered education and the learner-centered education are not opposite things. So they are not opposite things like the way we have color black and white, day and night. No, these are they are types. They are not opposites. And like all types, sometimes they are mixed. In some of the things, they are mixed. In some of the lessons, they have to be mixed. They have to be mixed. Okay. Teaching is like colors. Teaching is like colors, so it changes. Color changes. Color changes, and even time. So it's like color and time is something that can change. If you mix it will change. Like colors, if you mix colors, they will give you another color. Primary colors to secondary color. Remember that? Okay. Yeah. In one lesson, you might use learner-centered education or approach, but in the lesson that require explanations, in a lesson that require to explain in more details, to elaborate you as a teacher, it will require you to use teacher-centered education, or what we call uh, conventional teaching, which is a traditional method of instruction. Okay, and then the point here is not to do what? To abandon the lecturers. The lecturers means the traditional method of teaching or other conventional methods that work, but whenever possible, you should consider using learner-centered method because they will help learners learn successfully. So here, or the aim here of conventional teaching in learner-centered education, it does not mean that you should abandon the learner-centered education, but it just to involve teacher-centered education whenever possible, when you need more you as a teacher to explain, to make or to break things down for learners to understand. Use that opportunity, use the chance. You as a teacher, use a teacher-centered education or teacher-centered approach so that you make your learner understand better. And then whenever possible, to use a learner-centered method because this is the one that make learner feel accommodated, make learner feel part of their own learning. So make use of it because it will help learners learn very well, or to say successful. It's very effective. Okay. For example, when you're teaching math in mathematics, for example, when you're teaching mathematics grade 2, okay, grade 2 with the competence of that, not competency, but the learning objective that says, learner will know how to count with or without concrete objects, understand the need and the convenience of counting in every day. So the learning objective, it says what? Learner will know how to count with and without concrete objects, understand the need and the convenience of counting in everyday life. So that is the learning objective. This is just an example, to give an example, okay? How can you use teacher-centered in your classroom, okay? And then the learning competence, it said what? Learner should be able to count using concrete objects up to 50, and in twos up to 50, in threes up to 30, in fours up to 40, in fifths up to in fifth or in tenths up to 100. So here, your learners are required to count in the groups. The making groups of 2 up to what? Up to 50. Making the groups of 3 up to what? Up to 30. Making the groups of 4 up to 40. Okay? Or to say you have, for example, here counting in fours up to 40. You can also do what? You can also start by so here you are required to, for example, counting in fours to 40. So you need to make sure that you explain to learners how you do it, how to count in fours up to 40. You need to have those concrete materials. If you are using bottle caps, maybe you are using beans, seeds, stones, or pebbles. Pebbles, those are the stones that they are kind of like smooth. Yeah, they are found in you can find them where water flows, even that side of the coast. Yeah, the pebbles. You can also use buttons or what, or counters. Okay, by that time you are using them to explain. You are using what? The method that is called teacher-centered approach. You are the one central figure in that moment in the classroom. So for the things that need quite explanation, for the things that need quite demonstrations, try to choose teacher-centered education. But here it is not to abandon the learner-centered approach, but just to make fit whenever possible, whenever it is necessary, whenever it is appropriate or needed to use teacher-centered education. Use the opportunity to use teacher-centered education. So we are moving now to the dimensions. Dimensions. So when I talk about dimensions, these are the different components or the characteristics that will tell you, or that will guide down how you find out that or you tell that now I'm using learner-centered, or now I'm using teacher-centered, or here I was supposed to use learner-centered, or I was supposed to use teacher-centered. So, okay, let's have a look. The other point is that no lesson is ever completely learner-centered or teacher-centered. So as I've said earlier, that these are not opposite. So you can either have one or both, them all, like in a lesson. Okay, this is because there are many dimensions in a lesson. So there are many dimensions in a lesson. So in a lesson, some of the things requires learners participation only, requires only learners to work on, and some requires teachers to do what? To take part, or to be more involved in the lesson. You can observe a lesson using a list of dimensions and evaluate how conventional or learner-centered each part is. So you can do what? So here you can observe a lesson using a list of dimensions, and then just to evaluate how the conventional or the learner-centered part each part is. Okay, for example, say you want to look at three things, or for example, if you just want to look at three things, maybe the classroom setup, or teacher talk, or content, or even activities. You observe a lesson where a teacher keeps a learner's desk in rows. Okay, when you observe a lesson where you are doing what? You are keeping a learner's desk in a row. That way you are the one getting involved. So that is what? Teacher-centered. Okay, when you observe the learner's talk more than the teacher, that is what? That is learner-centered. approach or education. Okay, but all times, okay? You observe that the teacher initiates the teaching activity. You do what? You observe that the teacher initiates the teaching activities. Here is what? Here is teacher-centered education or teacher-centered approach. But the learners propose ideas as well. When the learners propose ideas as well, or maybe when learners are singing a song. So that is what? Learner-centered education. So whenever a teacher is involved much, that is teacher-centered education. Whenever learners are involved much, so that is learner-centered education or learner-centered approach. So these are the dimensions on how you can tell that by this moment the teacher needs to use learner-centered approach, or by this moment the teacher needs to be the one leading the teaching and the learning process, whereby it needs to be called what? Teacher-centered education. So from my side, so I hope you took something. I hope you are writing something down. I hope you are noting something somewhere. So from my side, bye-bye.
Goodbye, everybody. We had a good day. Goodbye, everybody. It's time to say goodbye to my teacher. Goodbye to my friends. Goodbye, everybody, till I see you again. Wave your hands left. Wave your hands right. Turn around once and clap your hands twice.